It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
And when it comes to establishing your worldview, I was curious, what newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand the world?
I've read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
But like what one specifically? I'm curious that you...
all of them, any of them that have...
Can demonic spirits attach themselves to inanimate objects? The answer is yes.
Welcome to Twat Waffle of the Week.
Greetings and welcome. We're going to jump right in today. As I mentioned on the 22nd, I am a non-insulin dependent diabetic. But I do pay attention to issues surrounding cost of medication. In a reaction to a Matt Getz story, I responded to the cost issue. I have since learned I was not fully correct in my understanding of the issue. My initial understanding was concerning the pricing of all insulin, but as Skeptical Raptor notes, quote,
"The complaints about insulin prices appears to be with the more innovative analog insulins, which are not generic. And this is where it can get very complicated. Here's the key point. Big Insulin reduced their prices by 31%, yet the PBMs reduced their prices. Oh wait, they didn't. So the PBMs, who work for the health insurers, did not reduce the prices of insulin for patients. The health insurers control your pharmaceutical purchases, forcing you to buy expensive insulin. Essentially, they are running a scheme where they charge you for their insurance and charge you for the higher priced insulin. And in case you're wondering, big health insurance is doing this with all kinds of drugs, not just insulin."
End quote. While this new information doesn't change my disgust with Getz, it does temper my understanding of, quote, Big Pharma. As Raptor concludes, quote, "I guess it's easier to create a meme about Big Pharma rather than big pharmacy benefit managers," end quote. Now, in the show notes, I included 2 links that are mentioned in his article, and I highly recommend giving them a read. So, this is my state. I'm not overly surprised by the action not taken. Quote,
"A near unanimous school board vote Tuesday night struck down a proposal to create an after-school Satan Club at the Northern York Elementary School. The proposal was initiated by Samantha Groom, a resident of the district. Every board member except Thomas Welch voted against allowing the club to form."
end quote. Now, if I have my directions correct, this is about 3.5 to 5 hours away from where I live. So, can we say lawsuit is on the way? Quote,
"The After-School Satan Club is an after-school program that promotes self-directed education by supporting the intellectual and creative interests of students," according to its website. The group says it does not try to proselytize. It seems to promote free inquiry and rationalism, according to its website. "It's clear these people had no idea who we are and what we are doing. says Lucian Greaves, co-founder of the Temple of Satan that sponsors the after-school club.
End quote. As of publication, a lawsuit is being prepared by the TST. From FFRF. Quote,
The state church watchdog has been informed that on April 12th, a teacher at Cigarroa High School in Laredo, Texas, brought Time to Revive, a religious ministry, to the school to preach and proselytize to students. The ministry reportedly handed out Bibles to students as well as multicolored bracelets with various biblical references. Students were told if they didn't pray, they were going to hell. Members of the ministry attempted faith healings and prayed over students. It has also been reported.
end quote. Like the above, the school is in the wrong. What baffles me, especially after all these years, neither the school nor the ministry think they did anything wrong. Basically, they are on the wrong side of McCollum versus the Board of Education, which is a case from 1948. Quote,
Public schools are not an appropriate place for outside adults to convince students to convert their beliefs or attend their church. FFRF staff attorney Chris Line writes to Laredo ISD Superintendent Sylvia Rios. This recruitment constitutes a utilization of the tax-established and supported public school system to aid religious groups to spread their faith. To quote the Supreme Court in the landmark McCollum v. Board of Education 1948 case.
end quote. We are in deep shit if this gentleman gets elected. What the fuck does Islamicizing your genitals even mean?
Genesis 1, God made man in his image. Male and female he created them. God's categories are good categories. God's plan is a good plan. It's a good order. Most of what we see today is a rejection of God's order. Most of what we see today are people deciding and seeing what God has made and choosing to reject it and deny it and destroy it and to molest it. These lives are broken because they're not built on truth. They don't have a good relationship. That father, I believe, is criminally responsible for manipulating and grooming his daughter. If he knew that that was coming while his daughter was growing up, and it's his son, by the way, it's not a daughter. If that father if that father is criminally negligent to his son because that father has not built his worldview on truth. The son is suicidal. The son is messed up physically, chemically, emotionally, relationally, truthfully. There is so much damage in that area. Now, you might read that, and there are people out there who will try to say, well, we'll go to a therapist. Well, I went to a therapist. Go get a medical doctor consult. Well, I got the medical doctor consult. We've had the bottoms surgery. No. It's not bottom surgery. It's mutilation. You've Islamicized your genitals. You've Islamicized yourself. Muslims do genital mutilation for women that have sex or commit adultery. That's what Muslims do. You are Islamicizing your genitals.
And as far as I know, children under the age of 18 are not considered candidates for sexual reassignment surgery. So Jenna Ellis is really, really living in a world of alternative facts. She claims that both Trump and Giuliani are just like the founding fathers for their efforts to overturn the election.
When our founders signed that declaration and they said we mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, that wasn't rhetoric. That was not a talking point. No. They had no idea in that moment if they would prevail and if the truth would prevail, but they were willing to do it. And this was the same exact attitude that I saw and I respect so much from President Trump and Rudy Giuliani in the midst of this whole election battle. They have literally been willing to pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. If you look at the fortunes that have been lost by those two men, if you look at the sacrifices they have made when their character has been smeared and damaged, they are in the same exact way willing to put themselves on the line for the truth. And I stand with them wholeheartedly.
So before we begin our final story, I'm going to do my weekly YouTube suggestion a bit early. Just for the simple reason the final clip is almost 5 minutes, but it is well worth the listen. So I present to you Mr. Sensible. He's another UK bloke, basically pointing out the stupidity of flat earthers, science deniers, and creationists. So with that, enjoy. So finally, Democratic State Senator Mallory McMurrow blasted Republican Senator Lane Theis for basically calling her a groomer who supports pedophilia. So in the course of, I'll say 4 years, we have gone from Pizzagate to this.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect to wake up yesterday to the news that the senator from the 22nd District had overnight accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself. So I sat on it for a while wondering why me. And then I realized, because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme. Because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. So then what? Then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white. Well, here's a little bit of background about who I really am. Growing up, my family was very active in our church. I sang in the choir. My mom taught CCD. One day, our priest called a meeting with my mom and told her that she was not living up to the church's expectations and that she was disappointing. My mom asked why. Among other reasons, she was told it was because she was divorced and because the priest didn't see her at Mass every Sunday. So where was my mom on Sundays? She was at the soup kitchen with me. My mom taught me at a very young age that Christianity and faith was about being part of a community, about recognizing our privilege and blessings and doing what we can to be of service to others, especially people who are marginalized, targeted, and who had less, often unfairly. I learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people. I also stand on the shoulders of people like Father Ted Hesburgh, the longtime president of the University of Notre Dame, who was active in the civil rights movement, who recognized his power and privilege as a white man, a faith leader, and the head of an influential and well-respected institution, and who saw black people in this country being targeted and discriminated against and beaten, and reached out to lock arms with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was alive, when it was unpopular and risky, and marching alongside them to say, "We've got you," to offer protection and service and allyship to try to right the wrongs and fix injustice in the world. So who am I? I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. Each and every single one of us decides what happens next and how we respond to history and the world around us. We are not responsible for the past. We also cannot change the past. We can't pretend that it didn't happen or deny people their very right to exist. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom. I want my daughter to know that she is loved, supported, and seen for whoever she becomes. I want her to be curious, empathetic, and kind. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment, or that healthcare costs are too high, or that teachers are leaving the profession. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. We cannot let hateful people tell you otherwise, to scapegoat and deflect from the fact that they are not doing anything to fix the real issues that impact people's lives. And I know that hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen. So I want to be very clear right now. Call me whatever you want. I hope you brought in a few dollars. I hope it made you sleep good last night. I know who I am. I know what faith and service means and what it calls for in this moment. We will not let hate win.
McMurrow's response was, in my opinion, epic. And it has garnered, I believe, at least 1 million views within 24 hours of her posting. And I believe rightly so. I also believe that she states the way to counter this Lane Theus's bullshit is, quote, "I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme, because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no," end quote. When I first listened to this, what came to my mind was welcome to McCarthyism 2.0. And with that, I bid you adieu. Peace out.